What's going on? My name is Jason Parks of The Media Captain. Today I'm going to be talking about keyword rankings dropping dramatically. If you're watching this video, take a deep breath. I know that it's nerve-wracking, and the first thing to do is don't panic. If your keyword rankings dropped, it's not necessarily a Google penalty. There's a high likelihood that the keyword rankings will come back eventually, but do not panic. I'm going to walk you through the steps as to what to do when your keyword rankings drop. From owning several businesses and owning an agency, it's very nervous when you do a search for a keyword that's very profitable for your business and it's nowhere to be found. But I'm just going to go through all the steps that you need to follow to make sure you've done your due diligence. So first is checking Google Search Console. The reason I recommend this is because Search Console is the official source of truth. There is a section within Search Console where you can check for manual actions. That will tell you if there are if Google has dinged you with any penalties. So if you've built unnatural links to your website, sometimes you will get a notification and there will be something within the manual action section that tells you that Google has an issue with your site. The crazy thing is that there's a lot of times where your keyword rankings might drop, you don't get that manual action. I'm going to dive now more into how to do your due diligence on that because that's the tricky part. If Google tells you you built low quality links, it's easy to detect that. Detecting other issues, a lot more difficult. So the other thing, if your keyword rankings have dropped dramatically, utilizing, tough word to say, utilizing the URL inspection tool. What that will do is tell you whether or not the page that may not be ranking, whether or not it's getting indexed by Google. So you want to use that, and when in some instances it might not get indexed just because maybe the developer on your site put a no index tag on the back end of the page. So this is going to tell you whether or not your URL is good or if it isn't populating and it isn't good. So definitely check the URL inspection tool. The other thing I like to do is the site search on Google. So you can see here, Durham Warehouse is the e-commerce company that I'm a partner of, and shout out to my sister who's behind the camera here. She always writes this great verbiage. But so this site search on Google. So durhamwarehouse.com/product/Park Perfection. When you put it into Google this way with the site and the semicolon, and then you go into that, that's going to show you whether or not the URL is getting indexed. So we like to use the URL inspection tool, but I also like to use site search. And if for some reason that URL is not populating, it can be a little bit concerning and there could be more deep-rooted issues, but this is definitely something that you're going to want to do to see whether or not that URL is even populating in Google. All right, so some other things. Let's say you've done the site search and your URL is nowhere to be found. I'm going to continue going on as to checklist to follow. So the next thing is check MozCast. Do a Google search for MozCast. It's the search algorithm weather forecast, which is kind of funny saying that out loud, that Moz puts together. So they give you the temperature on a daily basis. And how that temperature is dictated is based off a fluctuation of millions of keywords that are being tracked within Moz. So if the MozCast has a high weather score, that likely means that there could have been an algorithm update that day. And let's say that your keyword rankings have dropped dramatically and it coincides with an algorithm update. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but it's safe to assume that something with that algorithm negatively impacted your keyword ranking. So checking that is important. The next thing that you want to do is check a keyword ranking software, whether you use Moz, whether you use SEMRush. This is very important also. So you should be tracking your keywords from an SEO perspective. The reason for this is you can track versus competitors. You can also see if there's a significant drop in search visibility. SEMRush is what our agency utilizes. Every day we're able to see the search visibility, and if it's dropped by 15 or 20%, like that raises a red flag and we have to dig into that. So this is another thing to check. The other thing, when you've gone through all of this and if you feel like your keyword rankings have dropped because of some sort of penalty, there's different ways to audit the site. And I'm just giving a high-level overview here. There's a lot of research required that goes into this. But for the site audit, analyzing the backlinks. I talked about low quality links coming to the website. Google might notify you of that. There's other times where just if the majority of your backlinks are crappy, your site can get penalized and hurt because of that. Thin content. This is another issue. If you have 400 pages on your site, but 300 are blogs, and the majority of those blogs have 300 or 400 words, that Google could be looking at that as thin content. There could be duplicate content. If you've built out pages at this, a bunch of suburbs and it's pretty much the same content on all of those pages, that could be hurting your site. So there's a lot of things that could potentially, Google might not like. They're obviously looking for the best user experience. Contact an expert. When it comes to SEO penalties, and I actually wrote a blog on 40 SEO experts to follow on Twitter. I'll link to that within this video in the bio. But contact an expert on this, and an expert that focuses on penalty recovery. Our agency helped $1 billion car insurance company recover from a Google penalty, so we know this stuff inside out. We're not the only ones. There's a lot of others. But if you just go to a standard SEO company that doesn't have experience in this, they can just be taking the wrong path, and you need to get it right because it takes time to potentially fix issues. So in summary, there are times where your keyword rankings can drop dramatically. They'll come back the next day. It might have just been an indexing issue, so don't panic. But if it's been a couple of days, make sure to go through this audit, and of course reach out if you have any questions. I'm Jason Parks of the Media Captain.